We begin CBS2 News at 5 with this. The courtroom drama this afternoon for the man charged in a string of burglaries in Calabasas and Malibu. Anthony Rauda went before a judge, then went off in court.
CBS 2's Dave Lopez is downtown with what Rauda said that got everybody so fired up. Dave.
Well, Jeff, it was supposed to be a routine hearing. You know, he's being held on no bail for probation violation, a felon with a gun, and also refusing to report to his probation officer. All the while, he is a suspect in a number of burglaries, but also key, some of the shootings that have taken place in Malibu, including the killing of a camper who's the father of two young girls. Now, there are ballistics tests being run on that, but in the meantime, the Sheriff's Department has some time on their hands because he is being held on no bail. But he still has to find out when he's going to have a full hearing on that. That was supposed to happen today in court. It was supposed to be routine. It was anything but.
Excuse me, Your Honor. I'd like to speak.
And then, with his court-appointed attorney telling the judge that he does not want his client, Anthony Rauda, to speak. Rauda, a suspect in a string of burglaries in the Malibu area and possibly connected to shootings in the state park, went on a tirade.
I don't give buddy. I don't give I don't want to speak.
You don't have a right to speak.
I'm going to speak, buddy.
You speak through your attorney.
No, I'm not going to speak. I'm not going to cooperate with the public defender's office anymore, so that's the decision on that one.
And then, when Judge Don Kennedy told him he would not be able to address the court in any fashion, Rauda got louder, began shouting, and profanity poured out of his mouth.
Come over here, little chump. You're a piece of your mama.
That loud bang was Rauda pounding on the glass of the holding cell inside the courtroom. Then he started pounding himself up against the wall, yelling and screaming and cursing and calling everyone virtually every name in the book.
Honor, you understand that? You. Go get it. Get it. What's up?
At this point, Judge Kennedy, who allowed cameras in the courtroom, no video, just audio, ordered the cameras out as the bailiffs tried to remove Rauda. Rauda was finally subdued by bailiffs, and as he was being led away, he yelled and screamed and then cussed out his public defender, basically telling him, "I'm going to fire you. Don't try to come see me at all." Again, Rauda being held without any bail whatsoever as the ballistics tests continue in the lab of the Sheriff's Department, see if they can link the gun that was found with Rauda to any of the bullets that were found in those shootings. They still have a way to go. Now, Rauda, ironically, isn't even supposed to appear at these hearings. These are all routine without the defendant in the courtroom. But Rauda insisted today that he said, quote, "I have something to tell the judge, and it's real important." Reporting live from outside Men's Central Jail, I'm Dave Lopez, CBS 2 News.
All right, thanks for that, Dave Lopez. Now breaking news on President Trump's battle on immigration. He just announced a new plan to try to stop migrants seeking asylum here. Now, the president's plan comes just day before the midterm elections.
And he's preparing to give yet another speech in a key state. CBS 2 political reporter Dave Bryan is here with what he's got up his sleeve. Dave.
Well, with 5 days to go now, this is showtime for the midterm elections, and the president is definitely revving it up on immigration. The president has 10 campaign events on his schedule before Tuesday's midterm elections, and he's on a full court press about immigration with fierce words from the White House today and an ad many call racist.
These illegal caravans will not be allowed into the United States, and they should turn back now because they're wasting their time.
With the White House warning about a crisis at the southern border, the president today announced a plan to change the way asylum seekers can apply for legal status. Under the Immigration and Nationality Act, migrants can do so at border crossings even if they cross illegally. Under the president's plan, they must go to ports of entry in order to make a claim.
This endemic abuse of the asylum system makes a mockery of our immigration system, displacing legitimate asylum seekers, and there are legitimate asylum seekers, while rewarding those who abuse or defraud our system.
Adding more fuel to the fire is this ad the president tweeted out last night that featured Luis Bracamontes, a twice-deported Mexican national sentenced to death in April for killing 2 Sacramento area deputies in 2014.
Break out soon, no, kill more.
Even adding the words "Democrats let him into our country" and "Democrats let him stay," which the Sacramento Bee newspaper claims is false. Former senior Obama advisor Valerie Jarrett, who was the target of a tweet that got comedian Roseanne Barr fired from her own show, told CNN this is fear-mongering 101.
It's designed to scare people and to motivate them to not focus on the issues that are really important, to distract them from issues that, as I travel around the country, I hear about from everyday Americans, issues like health care.
As the president holds 10 rallies in 8 states to pump up GOP candidates in neck-and-neck races, so are big league Democrats, such as former Vice President Joe Biden, who stumped today for embattled North Dakota Senator Heidi Heitkamp.
Folks, with this country has to come together. We have to come together now. We can't wait. It's time to get up. Remember who the hell we are.
Now, this evening, President Trump is headlining one of those Republican midterm election rallies in Columbia, Missouri. The rally is just getting underway, and the president is expected to focus primarily on the growing list of immigration issues, warning that undocumented immigrants will be swarming at the borders if Democrats are elected to Congress, spreading fear and loathing among his passionate supporters. Jeff, back to you.
All right, Dave, thanks very much. The president made a lot of claims about illegal immigration during his White House speech.
But how much of that was accurate? CBS2 Sandra Mitchell is here with a reality check on some of the president's statements. Sandra?
Yeah, so we know the president is pushing this agenda on immigration, right? Well, the Associated Press is keeping track of what he is saying, and they are checking it with other data. Here's what Mr. Trump said yesterday when he first announced up to 15,000 troops could be sent to the border.
What's been happening over years is they would come in, release them, and they'd never show up for their trial. And we now have 25 or 30 million people in this country illegally because of what's been happening over many years. So we're not going to allow it. It's dangerous, and it's very
All right, is that true? Well, according to the fact checkers at the Associated Press, the Pew Research Center estimates there were about 11.3 million Americans in the U.S. illegally in 2016. They say that number hasn't really changed from 2009. Here's what the president said today about establishing tent cities for migrants.
We're not releasing them into our country any longer. They'll wait for long periods of time. We're putting up massive cities of tents. The military is helping us incredibly well.
According to the Associated Press, there is not enough detention space to hold families who are coming across the border, and the military is working to create spaces, but nothing's been finalized so far, and laws prevent children from being detained beyond 20 days. And Dave mentioned the president is attending 10 rallies across 8 states. The Associated Press is going to be right there double-checking his statements. Jeff.
All right, Sandy, thanks very much. Gubernatorial candidate Gavin Newsom made a stop here in Los Angeles on what he's calling his Courage for a Change tour. Newsom was joined downtown by his former opponent, former L.A. Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa. As you can see, the two worked the crowd. This is at Grand Central Market. They were really getting out there to urge people to vote. Newsom has been making stops up and down the state ahead of Tuesday, hosting town halls and rallies.
We just want to make sure it goes well for other Democrats up and down the state. It's all about turnout. The one thing that all of us maintain is an open-ended question is how many people are actually going to turn out.
Newsom is heading to a rally in San Diego this evening, and he's going to host a town hall in Palm Springs tomorrow. And his Republican opponent, that would be John Cox, he did not have any events today, but he plans to campaign in the San Fernando Valley tomorrow. Also, for more information on the upcoming election and the races you will see on the ballot, go to CBSLA.com and check out our extensive voter guide. You'll find it on the right-hand side of our website.
A wild pursuit in Orange County this afternoon. It started in Anaheim. Police say the car was stolen. At one point, the driver managed to elude several police cars as they closed in on him. The chase continued on the 91 and the 57 before it all came to an end when the driver pulled over on the westbound 60 in Walnut. That's where he was taken into custody.
And another driver, an Uber driver, was arrested for attempted kidnapping as well as evading arrest.
Yes, he led police on a dangerous Halloween night chase with passengers inside the car. And CBS 2's Amy Johnson is live with more information on that chase and the other serious allegations. Amy.
Well, Pat and Jeff, what a wild ride on Halloween night. Imagine getting into an Uber and realizing the driver is taking you somewhere else and then says he's kidnapping you. Well, that's what a man and woman said happened to them last night, and they were so scared they jumped out of the moving car. It was just before 7 Halloween night, and police were chasing an Uber driver in this blue Prius. Trick-or-treaters saw it all.
We were worried about the children.
Andy Wasif had taken his niece trick-or-treating and saw the strange chase that went around the same block 3 times, so he started recording it.
It was a wild Halloween night.
Santa Monica police were after 35-year-old Khalid Ilasayedsa Ali, an Uber driver from Anaheim who allegedly threatened to kidnap the woman and man in his back seat.
We got a call from a female who was in a vehicle, indicated that she was in an Uber and the driver was not letting her get out of the car.
Police say while they were chasing the car through Santa Monica, they got more calls.
We received 3 additional 911 calls indicating that they dealt with a similar type of incident involving the same type of vehicle and possibly the same suspect. One of the victims indicated that he thought the suspect was armed with a handgun.
The chase started around 23rd and Santa Monica and wound through residential streets.
At some point during the pursuit, the 2 occupants, being the male and female victims, jumped out of the moving vehicle. They suffered minor injuries only, luckily, minor bruises and scrapes to their bodies.
Ali eventually stopped at Bundy and Montana and turned himself in.
It was Halloween, residential area, a lot of children, a lot of families out and about trying to enjoy themselves. Our officers were very cognizant of that and did the best they possibly could to ensure that nobody was injured.
Now, police tell us that Uber is cooperating with their investigation, but Ali isn't saying much. He's in jail on $100,000 bail. He's expected in court tomorrow, facing charges of kidnapping and felony evading arrest. Reporting live in Culver City, Amy Johnson, CBS 2 News.
Thank you, Amy. Now, LAPD and Uber are joining forces to improve response time for 911 calls made from cell phones. Police are using new technology that works with both Apple and Android phones to quickly locate where you are. Uber has unveiled a new emergency button on their app. Using the button would immediately send dispatchers the rider's location, as well as provide information on the driver and the car. Officers addressed privacy concerns.
We can only obtain information if someone calls 911. We can't punch in a phone number and access someone's location just randomly.
Once that call is disconnected, police will have the location information for just 10 minutes. They say after that, all information is purged.
Very interesting. Yeah. Ahead at 5, a baggage handler falls asleep in a cargo hold, wakes up in a different state.
Plus, a husband and father of 2 is shot and killed by the LAPD. Coming up, his family is releasing body cam video of the confrontation and pleading for justice.
Then, hard to believe it's been 5 years since the deadly shooting rampage at LAX. The question is, has anything changed? We'll look at how the airport is trying to improve security and keep passengers safe.
And a worldwide walkout by Google employees. Why workers across the globe and here in Southern California are leaving their offices and taking to the streets.
I wonder what city that guy woke up in. Miami cool, Detroit, not so much. Sorry, Pat. Coming up, the weather. It's on the way.